Welcome to Learning English from People.
The lion of Iran who fought the West, Mohammad Mosaddegh. He was an old man. He was often sick. He wore simple pajamas to important meetings. Sometimes he fainted while giving speeches. To the powerful leaders in London and Washington, he looked weak. They thought he was a joke, but they were wrong. This old man was Mohammad Mosaddegh, and he was not weak. He was a lion. He stood up to the biggest empire in the world. He told the British Empire to leave his country. He told the king of Iran to obey the law. He fought for a simple idea: Iran belongs to Iranians. His story is a tragedy. It is a story of great hope and great sadness. To understand Iran today, you must understand this man. You must walk with him from the palaces of his youth to the lonely room where he died. Mohammad Mosaddegh was born in 1882 in Tehran. He was born into a golden cradle. His family was very rich. His mother was a princess of the Qajar dynasty, the royal family that ruled Persia. His father was a powerful minister who managed money for the government. Mohammad did not have a normal childhood. He lived in a world of high walls, beautiful gardens, and servants. But money cannot stop death. When Mohammad was only 10 years old, a terrible sickness called cholera came to Tehran. Many people died. One of them was his father. Suddenly, the little boy was the man of the house. The king gave him a special title, Mosaddegh Sultane. It means the one proven true by the state. It was a big name for a small boy, but it shaped his future. He learned that life is serious. He learned that duty comes first. His mother was a strong woman. She built a hospital for poor people. She taught Mohammad an important lesson. Being a prince is not about wearing gold. It is about helping people. As he grew up, Mohammad saw that his country was in trouble. The kings of Persia were weak. They spent too much money on trips to Europe. To get money, they sold Iran's treasures to foreign countries. Russia took control of the north. Britain took control of the south. Mohammad wanted to change this. He knew he needed knowledge. So he went to Europe. He studied law in France and Switzerland. He was the first Iranian to get a doctorate in law from a European university. He saw how people lived in Europe. They had laws. They had freedom. He asked himself a question: why can't Iran be like this? Dr. Mosaddegh returned to Iran just before World War I. The world was on fire. Iran said it was neutral. Iran said, "We will not fight." But the big armies did not care. Russian, British, and Turkish soldiers marched through Iran. They took food. The Iranian people starved. Mosaddegh worked for the government during these hard times. He became a governor. He became a minister. In every job, he was different from other politicians. He did not steal money. He did not take bribes. When he was the governor of a southern province, the British offered him money to pay his police. Mosaddegh said no. He said, "A free country pays for its own police." In the 1920s, a strong soldier named Reza Khan took power. Reza Khan wanted to modernize Iran. He built roads and schools. But he was also a dictator. He wanted to be the new king. In 1925, the parliament voted to make Reza Khan the new Shah, or the king. The soldiers surrounded the building. Everyone was afraid. Most politicians voted yes because they did not want to die, but Mosaddegh stood up. He gave a famous speech. He said Reza Khan was a good soldier, but he said, if he becomes king, he will have too much power. A king should be a symbol, not a ruler. He voted no. He lost the vote. Reza Khan became the Shah. The new Shah did not like Mosaddegh. He forced Mosaddegh to leave politics. For 20 years, Mosaddegh lived on his farm. He grew vegetables. He read books. He was silent. The world forgot about him, but he was waiting. In 1941, during World War II, the British and Russians invaded Iran again. They forced the old Shah to leave. His young son, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, became the new Shah. The political door opened again. Mosaddegh came back from his farm. He was elected to the parliament. He was older now. His hair was white, but his fire was hotter than ever. He saw one big problem in Iran. It was oil. Decades ago, the British discovered oil in southern Iran. They built a giant company called the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company. This company is now called BP. The company made billions of dollars, but Iran got almost nothing. The British government took more money from the oil company in taxes than the Iranian government got in royalties. It was not just about money. It was about dignity. The British built a huge refinery in the city of Abadan. The British managers lived in beautiful houses with air conditioning, swimming pools, and tennis courts. But the Iranian workers lived in holes. They lived in a slum called Kaghazabad, or Paper City. They lived in shacks made of old oil drums. They had no clean water. In the summer, the heat was deadly. Mosaddegh was angry. He said, "The oil is under our soil. It belongs to our people. Why should our children be hungry while the British get rich?" He had a new idea: nationalization. This meant taking the oil company away from the British and giving it to Iran. The British said this was illegal. Mosaddegh said it was justice. In 1951, the Iranian parliament voted to nationalize the oil. The people cheered in the streets. They wanted a leader who was not afraid. In April 1951, the Shah had no choice. He made Mohammad Mosaddegh the Prime Minister of Iran. The lion was now in charge. Mosaddegh moved quickly. He sent soldiers to the oil refinery. He told the British managers to leave. The British Empire was shocked. No small country in the Middle East had ever dared to do this. They decided to punish Iran. They did not use guns at first. They used money. Britain started a blockade. Their warships sat in the Persian Gulf. They told the world, "Do not buy Iranian oil, it is stolen property." The world listened. No one bought Iran's oil. The refineries stopped working. The pipes went dry. Iran had no income. The economy began to crash. Prices for food went up. The people became poorer. Mosaddegh went to New York. He spoke at the United Nations. He was old and frail. He walked with a cane, but when he spoke, he was electric. He told the world about the suffering of his people. He showed them the poverty. He became a celebrity. Time magazine named him Man of the Year. He was more famous than the President of the United States. But fame does not buy food. The British hoped Mosaddegh would give up. They thought, when the people get hungry, they will turn against him. But the British did not understand Iranians. The people were hungry, yes, but they were proud. For the first time in centuries, they felt like masters of their own house. They stood by their old lion. The young Shah was jealous of Mosaddegh. The people loved the prime minister more than they loved the king. Mosaddegh wanted to limit the Shah's power. He said, "The Shah should not control the army. The prime minister should control the army." The Shah refused. So in July 1952, Mosaddegh did something shocking. He resigned. He went home. The Shah was happy. He appointed a new prime minister who was friendly to the British. But the silence did not last. 5 days later, on the 30th day of the Iranian month of Tur, July 21, the country exploded. Millions of people poured into the streets of Tehran. They shouted, "Give us Mosaddegh or give us death." They faced the Shah's soldiers. The soldiers shot at them. Dozens of people died, but the crowd did not stop. They marched over the bodies of their friends. The Shah was terrified. He looked out of his palace window and saw a sea of angry people. He realized he could lose his crown. He surrendered. He asked the new prime minister to leave. He called Mosaddegh back. Mosaddegh returned to power as a hero. He had defeated the British blockade. He had defeated the Shah. He seemed unbeatable. But enemies are dangerous when they are quiet. The British realized they could not defeat Mosaddegh alone. They needed help. They called their friends in America. At first, the Americans liked Mosaddegh. They supported freedom, but it was the Cold War. The Americans were afraid of the Soviet Union. The British spies told the Americans a lie. They said, "Mosaddegh is weak. If he stays, the communists will take over Iran. Then Russia will get the oil." The American president, Dwight Eisenhower, believed the lie. He agreed to a secret plan. The plan was called Operation Ajax. In the summer of 1953, a CIA agent named Kermit Roosevelt arrived in Tehran. He carried two things, a plan and a suitcase full of money. The plan was dirty. First, they bribed newspapers to write bad stories about Mosaddegh. Second, they paid street gangs to start fights. They wanted to create chaos. Third, they bribed army generals to turn against the government. On August 15, they tried to arrest Mosaddegh at his house. But Mosaddegh knew they were coming. His guards arrested the messenger. The coup failed. The Shah panicked. He jumped on a plane and fled to Baghdad and then to Rome. Mosaddegh thought he had won. He told his supporters to go home. He wanted peace. He did not want a civil war. This was his mistake. Kermit Roosevelt did not leave. He used more money. On August 19, he hired a new mob. He hired wrestlers, thugs, and prostitutes. They marched through the streets shouting, "Long live the Shah! Death to Mosaddegh!" At the same time, tanks driven by rebel soldiers rolled into the city. Mosaddegh was at his home. He heard the noise. Then he heard the guns. The tanks surrounded his house. They fired shells at the walls. Mossadegh's guards fought bravely for hours, but they could not stop the tanks. The house was destroyed. Mossadegh's friends begged him to run. "Sir," they said, "if you stay, they will kill you." The old man climbed over the garden wall. He escaped to a neighbor's house. The battle was over. The democracy was dead. The Shah returned. The next day, Mosaddegh surrendered. He was taken to prison. Later, he was put on trial. It was a military court. Mosaddegh was tired and sick, but he did not stay quiet. He argued with the judges. He shouted at the prosecutors. "My only crime," he told them, "is that I removed the British Empire from this land." The court found him guilty of treason. They wanted to hang him, but the Shah was afraid. If they killed Mosaddegh, he would become a martyr, a holy symbol. So they sentenced him to 3 years in solitary confinement. He lived in a small cell. He saw no one. When the 3 years were over, he was not free. He was sent to his village, Ahmedabad. He was placed under house arrest. Soldiers stood outside his door. He could not leave the village. He could not see his friends. He could not speak to journalists. He spent the last 10 years of his life as a ghost. He tended his garden. He read his books. He watched from far away as the Shah became a powerful dictator. In 1966, the old lion got cancer. He grew weaker every day. He had one last wish. He wrote a will. He said, Bury me in the public cemetery next to the brave people who died on the 30th of Tur. He wanted to be with his people, but even in death, the Shah feared him. The Shah said no. He was afraid a public grave would become a place for protests. On March 5, 1967, Mohammad Mosaddegh died. He was 84 years old. His family washed his body. They dug a hole in the floor of his living room. They buried him there under the carpet inside his own house. There was no funeral. There was no parade, just silence. The Americans and the British thought they solved the problem. They got the cheap oil back. The Shah became their best friend in the Middle East. But they were wrong. The coup of 1953 was a wound that never healed. The Iranian people did not forget. They remembered that their democracy was stolen by foreign spies. They remembered the old man who fought an empire. Anger grew in the dark. It grew for 25 years. Finally, in 1979, the anger exploded. The Islamic Revolution swept the Shah away forever. Today, relations between Iran and the West are still difficult. To understand why, you must look back to 1953. Mohammad Mosaddegh failed to keep power. He lost his job. He lost his freedom. But in the hearts of his people, he won. He proved that a small nation could say no to a giant. He lies there still, under the floor of his quiet house in the village. But his voice still echoes in the history of the world.